Hi everyone. So today we are going to talk about viruses and vaccines. There's always a misconception upon either one, the other, or both. So we're going to do a quick, this is not going to go in depth into any major pathology or anything like that, but it's going to be simple for the person who might have not graduated high school all the way up to people who have a bachelor's degree, maybe even further, but not in the area of understanding how immunology or the way viruses and vaccines and so forth work. Just because you're really intelligent doesn't mean you understand the world, doesn't mean you understand everything. And I'll use me for an example. I have a degree, a university education, but that does not mean that I have any understanding of how engineering works. So we're going to talk about this one particular process, and mainly the reason why is it's just after the middle of 2021. In the last 18-19 months or so, we've had virus issues left and right, the spread of them, and there's so many misconceptions around the world. We're going to simplify how they all work, the good and the bad with them, as well as, how do you put it this way, the best of the, what's the worst case scenario, best case scenario type situations in making choices with how we choose to manage an infection that's related to a virus. So let's talk about the virus for what it is. So a virus is technically not really a living thing, but what it is it's a capsule that has some DNA or RNA in it that has the ability to multiply, reproduce, and continuously do so. So in a sense, it's living with the capacity to reproduce and create other forms of itself, but it can't do it on its own. It needs the help of another host. So it's kind of like a parasitic collaboration, a parasitic relationship. So how a virus works is pretty much when it comes across a specific type of tissue that it's designed to. There's some receptors or so that kind of connect it to a particular type of tissue. A cell, pretty much, what it does is it goes into the cell, the RNA gets sent to the system inside that cell to reproduce itself, to recreate that virus strain over and over and over again. So it starts depleting all of the resources inside the cell. And then once it's done reproducing and using up all the resources, or to the point where that cell gets weak, that is when the cell bursts and all the viruses that cell has produced spreads to other cells of the same origin or the same compatibility. Now, let's just think about, the flu, HIV, so forth. It all works the same way. It goes into the cell. The thing about when you go into the cell of the human body is your immune system can't see the cell when it's inside the human body. It just doesn't know. The only time it knows is whenever that cell bursts, there's some injury that occurs, and the virus itself is somewhere around there, or going to other places or whatnot, or it's finally visible because it's outside of a cell. So your immune system wise, once it's capable of identifying that cell, then it learns how to once again destroy it. And when it learns how to destroy it, then it sends out an antibody, a signal or so that kind of floods your entire body to try to identify all these other viruses, so it can inactivate its ability to hurt or go into other cells, and therefore neutralizes its ability to destroy and infect otherwise more and more cells. So that is technically how a virus works. It doesn't matter if it's the coronavirus or the flu virus or the RSV or the cold virus, the rhinovirus, whatever you want to call them. Viruses, they all work the same way. HIV, so forth. One key aspects that healthcare still has a problem with trying to figure out is the hepatitis virus. We still have some methodologies for immunity to it, but we haven't gotten it all figured out yet, which I would expect in a very short amount of time we will actually have it fixed, but it takes a while to figure out what is the unique properties that we could utilize for our own immune system to develop what they call immunity to these particular viruses. Flu virus is like any other virus. The reality of it is, without a vaccination or so, it requires time, your body's ability to be able to learn how to fight off that virus. So if you don't have enough time, your body's too weak or so, then yes, you decompensate and you don't survive. You survive the ability, your body has the ability and the resources to fight off a virus. Yes, it's going to do damage and you're going to do okay. Or you're going to survive. I don't know how okay you're going to do, and we'll talk about that here in a second. The next thing is, so that's the general principle of how your immune system, a virus kind of infects your body. Your immune system wise, once it identifies a virus, now everybody for some reason thinks antibodies are the key to being able to fight off a virus. Actually, it's only a small part of it. There are a lot of parts in your immune system. Beta cells, neutrophils, monocytes, T cells, B cells, immunoglobulin, antibodies, of course. So we hear all this stuff about antibodies. What does that tell us? Antibodies, the only thing that tells us is that we have the identifiers or antibodies are unique identifiers. Like I said, they float around in the system in quantities, and fairly small quantities overall, to help to kind of supervise the entire world, make sure there aren't any viruses or anything that can harm our body as much as it possibly can. So antibodies, they're important. The one key thing is they're important just as much as the immune system response itself, your body's ability to identify a problem otherwise. And that's the key thing, is if you have a viral infection that your body has never identified, your immune system needs to be able to identify it quickly, be able to learn how to neutralize it quickly, and then after it learns how to neutralize it really quickly, it has to have the ability to get rid of it out of your system as well too. So antibodies help to identify something that it's already learned. Now, with a coronavirus, most of the human population never had to learn how to identify the coronavirus because it really has not occurred in the human population that much. Well, so when your body is being attacked and it has never seen this foreign body before, does it take longer to learn, to adapt to this particular virus, to prevent it from being able to cause further injury or harm to your body? Absolutely it does. Apparently it is very, very good at utilizing lung tissue as its source of procreation. So lungs are important in the sense where everyone needs to breathe. So it's very, very important that that particular virus is neutralized very, very quickly. So the problem is, if your body's never had to learn from it, then it's going to take longer to figure it out. And as it's still trying to figure it out, it's still causing more damage until it does figure things out, until it figures out how to neutralize that particular strain of a virus. Now mutations occur, and this is where you hear the alpha, beta, delta variants and so forth as well too, and that's okay. Those variants are basic mutations that occur over time of a virus. Every living thing on Earth has to mutate. That's how it survives. So is it a bad thing? Yes, because it gets better at learning how to survive. Is it a good thing? Yes, because that also is a reason why we have an immune system that has the capacity to overcome viruses. So let's talk about vaccination. So what is a vaccine? So we're going to talk about vaccines from way back when all the way till now, brief history. long time ago, and we'll talk about the flu vaccine because it's the most common one you hear about, and all these other vaccines like the MMR or the polio, they're very, very similar in how they work. So a long time ago, what did we do? Vaccines were weakened versions of a virus. Not necessarily, not in a sense where the best way to describe it is they are not as potent. So they give your body, so you inject this weakened form of a virus. And the idea is with that injection, it causes some trauma in the area. Your immune system responds to that trauma. And then the next step is it's going to recognize that virus that's in, most of the time they inject it in your shoulder here, is that you'll notice that virus and then it'll learn to neutralize it very, very quickly because it is a weaker strand. Now, how well did that work? That worked okay. That didn't work bad. It saved a lot of people's lives. Now, once that generation of technology evolved, we got to the point where technology got better. So instead of using weakened forms of the virus, we used parts of a virus instead. Mainly the shell of the virus, the capsule, was realistically all we needed to be able to identify the virus. So what did we learn to do? Put parts of the capsule in a vaccination instead. So we went from a weakened live virus to just the capsule. The capsule itself is not the virus, so you inject in the arm, your body sees that piece of that capsule and says, hey, what is this? So it learns to identify it. Now, did it cause any harm? No, because the virus wasn't a part of it. So once again, if the virus wasn't a part of it, it can't harm you because there's no actual virus in there. So it got a lot safer. Did your immune system work the exact same way? Yes, because it learned. Now, did it produce as many antibodies? Not necessarily. But the key thing is, it's not about the antibodies, it's about the learning part of it. Is now that it knows how to identify this particular thing, and once it does, it can neutralize it a lot faster because identification is the trickier part of your immune system. Well, let that do its thing, and then neutralizing it is fairly simple most of the time. Now, let's talk about newer technologies of our era here. It's 2020. So let's talk about mRNA vaccinations. mRNA vaccinations is the newest form of medical technology using DNA. So instead of injecting a capsule, so we have to grow a virus, figure out how to just get the capsule, neutralize the virus, break up the capsules or so, and inject it into a person for a vaccination. So let's talk about what mRNA is. So mRNA is not the entire genome, the entire strand of the virus. Pretty much, it doesn't have all of the necessities to produce an entire virus. Is it a capsule of the virus? No, it's not even that. It's just the section of the virus that helps to produce that capsule. So we're going to use our bodies to help us here. So what do we do instead? So we inject the mRNA, the information that's necessary to make that capsule. Much easier to produce. So you put it in, you inject it, your body produces a piece of that capsule, the part that is necessary, the only part that's necessary to identify the virus. And once they do that, your immune system will say, hey, this is a foreign body. And it'll learn how to identify that foreign body and, once again, learn how to neutralize it as well too. Now people's like, oh, does it continue? No, it doesn't continue to replicate and continue to stay in your arm. No, once that strand is utilized, it's done. It's a one and done thing. And that's the key thing, is it's not DNA, it cannot save itself. RNA itself is just a one-time done thing. It replicates itself once and you're good to go. So we inject like what, 1,000, 10,000, whatever it is. It's not just one strand of the same thing. It's duplicated over and over again. So you have like several strands of this doing it all at one time. It produces all the necessity for your body to be able to identify and create immunity, and therefore, once again, the vaccine gives you the ability to identify it and produces the antibodies necessary. Now, we utilize the antibodies as a way of being able to monitor how well a vaccine works. How important is it? Well, here's the thing about it is we know certain levels of antibodies or so produce a better effect of identification. Well, of course, 10,000 people looking for something versus 100 people looking for something. Yet 10,000 people looking for something will find something a lot better than 100 people looking for something. So that's how we look at antibodies. It's like having 10,000 people look for something versus 100. So we do want a certain level of antibodies, especially if a virus is still prominent, it's still in the world. If it's not really in the world, do we really care how well it looks for it? Not necessarily. Think of rabies for an example, or think of polio for an example. It's not very prominent. So do we need our bodies to constantly be looking for polio? No, we don't. The flu? Yeah, here in the fall when the sun is not out, then yeah, we do need our bodies to look at the flu. So when do we inject people with a flu vaccine? Towards the fall. And that provides about 6 to 8 months worth of immunity when we need it the most, or when we have the highest likelihood of injury from that particular virus. Now, with the coronavirus, we still don't have all the information we need yet to say, hey, this is the best process. When do we need a booster shot? If we need it annually, or when is the worst time that it shows up? That we don't know. Coronavirus is somewhat of a respiratory virus, so we would assume, once again, whenever the weather gets cooler or towards the winter times, similar to the flu, is it's going to be its best chance of being able to cause injury. Do we know that for sure? No, we don't. So let's talk about the misconceptions. Pete, so this vaccine for the coronavirus was rushed. Absolutely. We know the technology works. How well it works? Do we know? Absolutely not. Do we have anything else other than letting your body figure out if it can learn how to neutralize this virus fast enough or not? No, we don't know. Do we know all of the side effects or anything like that from the vaccine itself? No. But we do know what injuries occur because of the coronavirus. And some of it is irreversible, otherwise it's a permanent injury. Think of lung tissue. If a virus injures to the point where it destroys a cell, that cell's gone forever. You're done. If it destroys enough of it, then your body decompensates. I will use lung tissue as an example. You have 5 lobes in your lungs. You have a lot of lungs. If you sit and do absolutely nothing, not completely nothing, do your basic stuff, go to the toilet, eat meals or whatever it is, 2 lobes is absolutely fine. You have 3 lobes of excess or so, and it's there just in case. It already built a reserve for you when you were born. And it's there because we know over time, injury, every time you get the flu, every time you get a cough or a cold, every time somebody punches you in the chest, every time you inhale something caustic or accidentally inhale fumes of whatever, go out in the world and smoke a cigarette, so forth. There are a lot of things that cause lung injuries, and over time those injuries are not repairable. So you have excess lungs. Why? So whenever some of it gets harmed here or harmed there or so, overall you're still going to do okay. You're still going to be able to function. So with a virus, and we'll talk about flu virus, coronavirus, RSV, the lung viruses, because those are pretty prominent, is every time you get an infection, regardless if you notice the infection or not, otherwise there are people that have no symptoms, and there are people who have a lot of symptoms. We know one thing is they attack lung tissue. So they destroy lung tissue. That's how they propagate. So as lung tissue gets destroyed, is that piece of lung tissue replaceable? Absolutely not. So that's permanently gone. So that's what a virus does. That's how it propagates. That's how it survives, is to utilize lung tissue to support itself. Now, does a vaccine harm lung tissue? No, it doesn't. It teaches your bodies. It helps your body to learn. Does it hurt? Does it have side effects? Of course it does. Because it's your system's, your body's own response to it. So you still have the response that your body would give. But does it cause overall damage to your lungs? Absolutely not. Which, on top of lung damage, we are coming to find that the coronavirus also causes some amount of heart damage as well too. I've always told people this in healthcare is you have one heart. If a little bit of it goes, you only have one heart. We can't screw it up. You have 5 lungs. You can destroy 3 and you're still good to go. But you only have one heart, so it has to function for your entire life without too many problems. Well, if something is going to cause damage to your heart, why would you let it do that? And that's the issue. It's like, oh, maybe the government or maybe this or that, conspiracy theories. Well, vaccinations are vaccinations, regardless if you like it or not. It's one thing that we know that it causes lung damage. We know it causes heart damage. That's why people can't breathe. Part of it is lung, part of it is heart. But when it attacks both of it, it causes inflammation, swelling, injury to both. It makes it twice as hard to breathe, twice as hard to do work, twice as hard to function. So the vaccine doesn't cause any of that damage. It does cause side effects, absolutely. But would you rather have side effects with no permanent damage, or take your chances and says, you know what, I'll get it and I'll get over it. Yes, you're gonna get it. Yes, you're gonna get over it. But you're also going to have damage, regardless if you have symptoms or not. You can be the perfectly healthy person. Well, I've had the virus. I remember being really weak from it. I also remember 4 months after recovery from it. Was my physical health back to normal? Of course not. It takes time to get your physical health back. Even going to the gym and so forth, it took quite a bit of time to get back to my normal routines. And even where I'm at right now, 7 months after, am I back to my normal routine? Absolutely not. I'm probably about 90% of the way there, 85-90% of the way there to my normal, which is pretty good considering how much injury occurred to my body from the virus itself. Now the vaccine, like I said, gives you side effects, makes you weak, makes you feel worn out. Did you get the virus? No, you didn't get the virus. But you got what your body needed to learn how to identify and then also react to it. That's expected. Over time, will vaccines get better? Yes. We'll figure out things a lot better with vaccines. Healthcare will figure it out. Companies will figure it out better, where there will be less side effects. And the other side of it is, once your body has learned, every subsequent vaccination should be less complicating. Yes, the first 2, there are companies that have 2 vaccines to build good immunity to it. Well, the coolest thing is, that's the first time. Your body just hasn't really learned overall how to identify it appropriately. So these 2 vaccinations help. Versus 1, it improves the likelihood of your body's response to it. Now, a booster shot, let's just say future immunity, as your antibodies, as your immune system is less worried about it. Well, if it's going to be something that is prominent, that is going to cause problems in the world, will we need our systems to respond better? Absolutely, because identification of a virus, your body, even with good antibodies, will still take 24 to 48 hours to identify it in your body. So speeding up that identification process with an abundance of antibodies in your system, is it a good thing? Yes, because that means that's 24 hours or 2 hours or 6 hours or so. The faster your body identifies a problem, the less damage it's going to cause overall. Now we also know, similar to the flu virus, that it can spread very, very easily. So the other question turns out to be is, why do you take the vaccine? It's not that after you take a vaccine, it does not mean that you cannot spread the virus. It does not mean that you cannot get the virus. It's just a vaccine. It's your body's ability to identify and be able to neutralize it. So it learns, but you get the virus or so, how long does it take to identify the virus? We don't know. Each person is different. How long does it take to neutralize? We have an idea. Statistics say this particular amount of time, but we don't know. Some people take longer than others. Some people are on certain medications that make their immune system take longer to respond. Some people are on medicines that might heighten their immune system. We just don't know because everybody is different. The average person, the healthy person, that we know at roughly about this amount of time and that amount of time. But in the meantime, while your body is still trying to neutralize it, can you infect other people? Absolutely. Well, if without the vaccine, without any immunity, you are somebody that can be walking around without any symptoms, without you even knowing that you have a virus. And it's 5 days that you could be walking around and infecting other people and not know it. How many people, how public of a person are you? How many people will you come across in 5 days? If you work in an office building, or you work on the 40th floor of a building, a skyscraper, and there's 3,000 people, and you walk into an elevator and you breathe into the elevator, well, just because you get off the elevator doesn't mean whatever you breathe gets out of the elevator. Whatever bathroom you go into, how long does it linger in there? Well, you have the ability to infect so many people because you don't know, and for 5 straight days. Well, if a vaccine takes that 5 days and converts it to maybe 1 or 2 days of you being infectious, is that better? Absolutely, because you can only infect so many people in 1 or 2 days versus the same world in 5 days. You decrease that risk of infecting other people or infecting less people in 2 days than you do in 5 days. Well, that's the whole point of herd immunity, of all of inoculations, of vaccines or so, is to have enough people where they don't stay infectious for 5 days without knowing it, or 4 days without knowing it, or 3 days without knowing it. The less time you have the ability to infect other people, the better it is for the world as a whole. That's the whole point of a vaccine, is to not necessarily not give you the coronavirus, or not give you the flu virus, or not give you RSV, but to protect your body from being able to have even more damage if you didn't have the virus. So that's the key thing of how a vaccine works. Now, the goods and the bads. So, do people die from the vaccine? Yes, absolutely. Welcome to statistics. Now, just because you get a vaccine, could it be an allergic reaction? Absolutely. Could it be that your body has other underlying issues, that it doesn't have a good immune response? Absolutely. Could you develop an autoimmune problem from it? Yes, of course you can. Likelihood of it happening? Well, I hate to say it this way, is when you're that 1 in a million person, it sucks. It's like, well, you know what? There was my 100%. 100% likelihood. But when we inoculate or give vaccinations to 1 million people, and we come to find out only 30 or 40 people have problems, or maybe 100 people die, or 50 people die, is it really bad for those 50 to 100 people? Absolutely. It sucks for them, and it sucks for their family, and they're going to have the experience that says, hey, you know, my husband or my daughter got the vaccine, or my wife got the vaccine, and they died from it. So it creates this sour taste in that person's mouth, and that person's going to spread. Welcome to social media nowadays, is that it spreads. But they didn't do any research. They just did it from experience. And what we come to find out from the research, from the millions and millions of vaccinations versus the possibility of the millions and millions of death, is that 50 to 100 people dying from the vaccine worth it compared to not having the vaccine and it killing thousands of people every single day? Well, if it kills 3,000 people every single day, but for every 5 million people, 100 people die from the vaccine. the vaccine's more worth it because it kills less people overall. Um, so, so, so is it the better benefit? Absolutely. The likelihood of a problem occurring from vaccines is they're safe overall. We know this. We've just improved it. Is this the first time we trialed an mRNA vaccine? Yes, absolutely. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That is part of the process of healthcare. That's a part of the process of developing new technologies to prolong life, to create healthier, robust life. Does it work? Yes, because people are living longer. Now, people who don't have the ability, and people talk about, hey, how the efficacy. Well, a little bit of efficacy, even 50% protection, 60% protection is still better than no protection at all. Because even at 60%, 50 or 60% protection means what? Your body's still going to identify the virus faster. It's still going to be able to keep you from having more injuries, more damage than if you didn't have it. And that's the key thing is, how much heart damage do you want? We know this pandemic is going to cause a humongous problem when it comes to not the short term. Because in the short term, within less than a year, we already have a plausible ability to control the virus. We just need the population and we need the ability to distribute the vaccine better. It just takes time. Unfortunately, the system has bottlenecks here, and so forth all along the way, just because we've had to deal with such a very challenging virus in the last 19, 20, almost 2 years now. Well, we have the technologies, we just need the knowledge to spread appropriately to say, hey, the vaccine, are we forcing people to take the vaccine? You can't force people to take it. Other countries might. The reality is it will, in a short amount of time, in this generation, it's going to create a sourness. It's going to sour some people to government and official projects or processes. Long-term wise, I'm pretty sure the governments are okay with it. Sorry, they're mad at us, but everybody survives. So people don't appreciate being alive and not having further heart injury, not having further lung injury. Well, when you're 20 years old and 30 years old and 40 years old and you're healthy overall, you don't understand that. But the moment after 50 years old or so, and you're not having your normal exercise as you normally would, or you're not as robust as you were, well, part of it is because you might have been the one that had the ability to take the vaccine to prevent that damage from occurring from this particular 2 years that we've had, and you didn't. Well, here's the thing about social media versus actual research. Do the research. Don't listen to what people who don't understand how a vaccine works, who doesn't understand viruses, who doesn't understand how your immune system works. Do I understand everything about immune system? Of course not. Do I understand everything about viruses? Of course not. Do I understand everything about how a vaccine works? Of course not. But I do understand the principles of the good and the bad that comes from both sides. If I don't take the vaccine and I don't get the coronavirus, I'm a very, very, very lucky person. The reality is, who is that lucky? That's the person who wins the lottery. 1 in a billion people, whatever it is. The likelihood of somebody being that lucky is somebody who lives remotely and doesn't interfere with the rest of the world, low population, that has no insight to the world whatsoever. The reality is, you're gonna get the coronavirus if you don't have the vaccine, and it's going to cause injury of some sort, even if you are asymptomatic. Otherwise, you have 0 symptoms. If you get the vaccine, are you going to get the coronavirus? Yeah, you still are going to get the coronavirus, but not from the vaccine. The thing is, the vaccine will do is identify the coronavirus when you get it faster, so that your body can neutralize it before it causes lots and lots of damage. We know that we get sick because any illness causes so much damage. Your body is getting resource depleted, and then you have a problem. would I recommend the vaccine versus not getting the vaccine or whatever it is? I say this, you're smart enough to do your own research. Dr. Facebook, Dr. Google, Dr. Twitter, whatever it is, social media does not do any world of good when it comes to being able to understand research. This one research paper says, hey, all these people died. Well, the thing about one research paper is, it's just one research paper. How about you look at the entire population of research, not just one? And that's the thing about doing your research, is to not just assume one research paper is the answer to everything. You have to read multiple research papers. You have to look at multiple circumstances. What is the information they're trying to portray? What is it that they were trying to learn from this? Once you do enough research, then you have a good answer. And that's the key thing, is everybody wants the information just to be handed to them. Well, people are going to hand you information, but only information they want you to know, because they want you to be on their side. I could care less if anyone's on my side. Like I said, this is the basic principles of vaccinations and what we know, what healthcare, what the system knows about why we do this. Well, yeah, people are going to die because they get vaccinated, but a lot more people are going to survive and have less health problems because they do. That's something to outweigh or weigh the cause and effect of. And that's the world, how it works, is there's no perfect answer to everything. Thank you.